So we've all been there, right? It's January 1st or, maybe just a random Monday morning,
Oh, always a Monday.
always a Monday. And you wake up and you decide, okay, today is the day. I'm going to be a completely different person.
Right. The classic fresh start.
Exactly. You're going to eat perfectly, work out every single day, read a book a week, and never procrastinate again.
Which is, exhausting just to think about.
Totally exhausting. We treat behavior change like we're just flipping a switch. Like if we summon enough sheer willpower, this new perfect version of us will suddenly activate.
Yeah, it's a very common trap, honestly. We assume self-improvement is supposed to be this immediate dramatic transformation.
Right.
And we rely entirely on motivation. We expect that sudden surge of inspiration to just, I don't know, magically carry us through the grueling reality of actually changing our daily lives.
And then, inevitably, Tuesday rolls around.
The dreaded Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday hits, you're tired, you're stressed from work, and that switch flips right back off. And you're just left staring at an abandoned gym bag in the trunk of your car.
Or that dusty journal on your nightstand.
Yes, exactly. And it's incredibly frustrating. It forces this really heavy question onto you, which is, why is it so hard to change our lives, even when we genuinely really want to?
Well, we usually internalize that failure, don't we? We assume the problem is a character flaw.
Oh, for sure. Like we're just broken.
Right. We think, oh, I lack discipline, or I'm just not strong enough to stick with it.
So to figure out why that assumption is completely backwards, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a massive stack of source material today.
And it is a really fascinating stack.
It really is. We've got everything from Wikipedia articles on behavior, book summaries from financial and legal blogs, descriptions of habit tracking apps, and articles straight from James Clear himself.
Yeah, the author of Atomic Habits.
Exactly. His mega bestseller, which has sold, over 20 million copies? It's been topping charts for nearly 5 years now.
Which is just staggering for a nonfiction book.
It's wild. It completely shifted how the world thinks about self-improvement. And our mission today is to use all these sources to decode the exact mechanics of how to build good habits and break bad ones.
Right, and just to be clear up front, this isn't about hype. We aren't doing motivational posters here.
No, definitely not.
This is about the actual science and the systems of behavior change.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the biggest aha moment for me right off the bat, reading through all this, is that our failure to change isn't a lack of willpower.
No, not at all.
It's a failure of our systems.
Exactly, because willpower, it's a finite resource. It actually depletes throughout the day.
Really, like a battery.
Very much like a battery.
Yeah.
If you rely on willpower to resist, say, a donut in the break room at 3 p.m., after making 100 exhausting decisions at work all day,
You are going to eat the donut.
you are going to eat the donut, yes. You will probably lose that battle. Systems, on the other hand, don't require daily reserves of motivation.
Right, they just run in the background. And looking at the math behind systemic change, this is what makes it so powerful. Specifically from the Edelweiss Mutual Fund source, they highlight this concept of getting 1% better every day.
Right, the 1% rule.
Yeah. And let's look at that math, because a 1% improvement seems, completely insignificant in the moment.
It feels like nothing.
Yeah. If I decide to read 2 pages of a book today instead of 0, or if I save $5, my life hasn't visibly changed at all.
But the compounding effect over time is massive.
It's crazy. Getting 1% better each day for 1 year doesn't make you, 365% better.
Right.
Because of compound interest for self-improvement, you end up 37 times better by the end of the year. 37 times.
Which is incredible. But the problem is the human brain is not wired to appreciate compounding.
Wait, really? Why not?
Well, evolutionarily speaking, we are wired for immediate threats and immediate rewards. A 1% improvement doesn't trigger our reward circuitry.
Oh, because it's too small.
Exactly, so we just dismiss it. We abandon the small positive action because it doesn't yield an instant, noticeable result.
Wow.
But the flip side is equally dangerous. Getting 1% worse every day, like skipping one workout or scrolling on your phone for 1 extra hour.
Which is so easy to do.
So easy, but that compounds downward until your baseline drops nearly to 0.
Which brings us to this major conflict with how we're usually taught to pursue success, right? We were obsessed with setting massive goals.
Oh, entirely. Society loves a big goal.
But the research here argues that goals are actually fundamentally flawed if you want lasting change.
Yeah, that's a tough pill for people to swallow.
It is, because goals are about the results you want to achieve, while systems are about the processes that lead to those results.
Mm.
And there's this fascinating observation in the data that just hit me like a truck.
The one about winners and losers.
Yes, winners and losers have the exact same goals.
It's so true. Every single athlete at the Olympics has the goal of winning the gold medal. Every candidate applying for a job has the goal of getting hired. If successful and unsuccessful people share the same goal, then the goal itself cannot be the thing that differentiates them.
That makes so much sense.
Right. The differentiator is the system of continuous, small improvements they actually implement to get there.
Okay, I hear that systems matter, but realistically, I'm going to push back a little here.
Sure, go for it.
If I don't have a goal, like, lose 10 pounds or run a marathon, I won't even build a system to begin with. Do we need the goal to start the engine? We're always taught to keep our eyes on the prize.
I see what you're saying.
Because it feels a bit like you're telling me to ignore the scoreboard entirely and just focus on running around the field.
Well, to take that scoreboard analogy further, staring at the scoreboard actually distracts you from the incoming tackle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Goals are necessary for setting direction, absolutely. They give you a compass heading. But once that direction is set, your systems are what dictate your progress.
So if you spend the entire game staring at the scoreboard, you literally aren't watching the ball.
Exactly. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Attaining a goal is just a momentary alteration.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about cleaning a messy room. You can muster up the energy, rely on willpower, and you achieve your goal. The room is clean,
Okay.
but if you maintain the exact same sloppy habits that led to the mess in the first place, you'll be looking at a new pile of clutter by next week. You treated a symptom without curing the cause.
Man, that hits close to home. So we have to move past the temporary outcome and get to the root of the behavior.
Precisely.
And the sources break this down into 3 layers of behavior change, kind of like an onion. The outermost layer is outcomes. That's what you get. Losing weight, publishing a book, saving money.
Right, the surface level.
And the middle layer is processes. That's what you do. Going to the gym, writing at your desk, automatically transferring funds to savings.
And then there's the core.
Yes, the innermost layer, the deepest part, is identity.
Hmm.
And that is what you believe about yourself.
Identity is where true, lasting behavior change actually occurs.
Right.
Let's say you're trying to quit smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone offers you a cigarette. If you say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, that operates at the outcome layer.
Because you still think of yourself as a smoker.
Exactly. You believe you are a smoker who is merely sacrificing something in that moment. But if you say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, that operates at the identity layer.
It completely signals a shift in your self-perception.
Yes. And the behavior of declining the cigarette doesn't require willpower anymore because it aligns with who you genuinely believe you are.
But that shift in self-perception doesn't just happen by magic. Like, you can't just wake up and say, I am a marathon runner now, if you've never run a mile.
No, definitely not. Your brain requires proof.
And there's a concept here from Clear that I love. It's that every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
The voting analogy is brilliant.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a unanimous vote to change your identity. You just need a majority. If you eat a cookie, okay, that's one vote for being an unhealthy person.
But the election isn't over.
Right. Because if you also work out and you eat a salad and you drink water that day, those are 3 votes for being a healthy person. You win the election for the day. You are providing undeniable evidence to your brain.
And if we look at the linguistic side of this, the etymology of the word identity actually reinforces this perfectly.
Oh, yeah, the Latin roots, right?
Yes. It's derived from the Latin words essentitas, which means being, and identidem, which means repeatedly.
Repeatedly. Wow.
So identity literally translates to repeated beingness.
That is so cool.
You aren't born with preset beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
Your identity emerges directly out of your habits, and neuroplasticity supports this completely.
Oh, so.
Every time you repeat an action, the neural pathways associated with that action physically thicken and strengthen in your brain. You are literally layering that behavior into your biology.
Okay, so tying this back to your life, the listener's life, the goal isn't for you to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner.
Yes, exactly.
Because every time you go out and run for just 5 minutes, you aren't merely checking a box on a workout plan. You are casting a vote for that new identity.
Meaningful change doesn't require these radical overnight overhauls. It just requires consistent, undeniable evidence that you are becoming the person you want to be.
But, and this is a big but, let's look at the friction we hit when we try to do this.
Yeah.
Because if every action is a vote, why do we usually give up before the election is won?
Ah,
Like you put in 2 weeks of good votes. You go to the gym, you eat well, you sleep 8 hours, you look in the mirror, and absolutely nothing has visibly changed. The scale hasn't moved a single pound.
It's infuriating.
It is. And this is what the research calls the plateau of latent potential,
Yeah.
which is exactly where most people just abandon their systems.
We abandon them because we expect our progress to be linear. We put in a unit of effort, and we expect an immediate, equal unit of reward. But compounding, whether we're talking about finance or behavior, is not linear. It curves.
So in the beginning, there's a massive gap.
A huge gap between what you expect to happen and what is actually happening. This gap is known as the valley of disappointment.
One of the case studies from the iPleader source uses a brilliant analogy for this. It compares habit formation to planting a seed.
The seed analogy is perfect for this.
If you plant a seed and water it daily, nothing happens above the surface for weeks or even months.
Right, it looks like dead dirt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But underneath, a massive complex root system is developing. And you can't keep digging up the seed every 2 days to check if it's growing, or you'll literally kill it.
You have to trust the system while you are in that invisible plateau. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why society misunderstands success.
Oh, the overnight success myth.
Yes, when someone finally breaks through that plateau, when the plant finally breaks the surface, society calls them an overnight success. They look at a successful business or a fit athlete and assume they just came out of nowhere. They completely miss the months or years of invisible compounding effort, the watering of the seed that happened in the background.
Okay, so let's put a timeline on that invisible effort because people want to know, how long are you actually stuck on this plateau? There's this super pervasive self-help trope out there that it takes 21 days to form a new habit.
Oh, the 21-day myth, yes.
It's everywhere.
It is, but it's a complete myth. It originated from a book in the 1960s called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Wait, really? Where did the number come from?
It was actually based on a plastic surgeon's observation of how long it took his patients to adjust to their new faces after surgery.
You are kidding me.
No, seriously, it had absolutely nothing to do with behavioral habit formation. But it caught on because 3 weeks sounds highly achievable.
That is wild. So what is the actual number then? Because the University College London study from our sources looked at real behavioral data to bust this myth.
Right, the 2009 study.
Yeah, and they found it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. And the range is massive.
The range is the most important part of that study.
It's anywhere from 18 days for something super simple, like drinking a glass of water every morning, all the way up to 254 days for complex routines.
Right, because complex routines require deeper neural pathway myelination in the brain. Building a habit of a daily 5-mile run required significantly more neurological rewiring than just remembering to take a vitamin.
254 days. That is a massive stretch of time to keep casting votes without seeing the finish line.
It's almost a year.
Yeah. So since we know we have to survive this plateau for an average of, a couple of months, what are the actual day-to-day mechanics we can use to stick with it?
This is where we get into the application.
Right. And the Vyaktagat Vika source highlights a really interesting comparison between two heavyweights in this field. On one side, we have the investigative research of Pulitzer-winning journalist Charles Duhigg.
The author of The Power of Habit.
Yes. And on the other side, the highly practical application of James Clear. Let's start with Duhigg.
So Duhigg approaches habits from a more macro sociological and neurological perspective. He popularized what he calls the habit loop.
Which has 3 parts, right?
Correct. The cue, the routine, and the reward. And Duhigg's macro insight, his golden rule of habit change, is that you cannot actually extinguish a bad habit.
Right, really? Never.
Never. Once that neural pathway is forged, it is permanently there. You can only replace the routine.
Okay, so if your cue is feeling stressed at work, and your routine is going outside to smoke a cigarette, and your reward is that brief moment of stress relief, you can't just delete the smoking routine.
Exactly, because you still face the cue of stress, and your brain still demands the reward of relief.
So you have to insert a new routine, like maybe doing 10 push-ups or chewing gum, that delivers a similar physiological reward when triggered by that exact same cue of stress.
Yes. And Duhigg looks at this on a massive scale. He explores how corporations like Alcoa transformed their entire corporate culture by focusing on Keystone safety habits.
Oh, right. The safety protocols changed everything else.
Right. Or how societal habits literally fueled the civil rights movement, like with Rosa Parks. He provides this deep understanding of why habits exist.
But then we pivot to James Clear, who takes that theoretical loop and translates it into a very micro-level checklist for you to use tomorrow morning. He calls it the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yes, and Clear expands Duhigg's loop slightly. He makes it cue, craving, response, and reward.
That craving phase is new.
It is, and the introduction of the craving phase is huge because it addresses the brain's dopamine cycle.
Because dopamine isn't just about pleasure.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dopamine is not just released when you experience pleasure, it is released when you anticipate it. The craving is the anticipation of the reward, and that is what actually drives your response.
So Clear's framework is designed to manipulate each of these 4 stages. If you want to create a good habit, you follow his 4 laws.
Which are: make it obvious for the cue, make it attractive for the craving, make it easy for the response, and make it satisfying for the reward.
Let's look at how you actually manipulate these in your own home, starting with making the cue obvious. This is all about environment design.
Yes. There's a fascinating study from Duke University demonstrating that location is the most powerful driver of mindless habits.
Location, really, not time of day.
Location. Our brains mentally assign behaviors to specific physical locations. Your basal ganglia, the part of the brain responsible for automatic behaviors, literally associates your couch with watching Netflix and relaxing.
And it associates your desk with work and stress.
Exactly.
So bringing in some of the Indian context examples from our sources, if you want to stop endlessly scrolling on your phone at night, do not rely on willpower to resist the device sitting right there on your nightstand.
Because you will lose.
You will lose. Change the environment. Make the cue invisible by putting the phone charger in another room entirely.
Or, if you want to eat healthier, don't leave biscuits on the counter and expect to resist them every time you walk into the kitchen.
Hide the junk food in an inconvenient cupboard and keep a bowl of fruit right on the counter where it is highly visible.
You're designing a physical environment where doing the right thing is simply the path of least resistance.
And you're leveraging visual cues to your advantage. Now, another powerful strategy for the cue phase is habit stacking, which Clear even integrated into his new Atoms app.
Habit stacking is brilliant. Instead of trying to pair a new habit with a specific time and location, you tie it to an existing, deeply hardwired habit.
Because the neural network for the old habit is already robust, so you simply piggyback on it.
Right, the formula is, after I do my current habit, I will do my new habit.
So after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. The physical action of pouring the coffee becomes the trigger.
Which brings us to the third law, make it easy. And arguably the most practical advice in the entire framework is the 2-minute rule.
I love this rule. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Because it directly addresses the concept of activation energy. In chemistry, activation energy is the minimum energy required to start a reaction.
And in behavior, getting started is the hardest part.
Exactly. By scaling a habit down to 2 minutes, you drastically lower the activation energy required to overcome inertia.
So you don't tell yourself, I'm going to study for 3 hours. You tell yourself, I'm going to open my textbook and read 1 single paragraph.
Don't say, I'm going to do a massive workout. Say, I'm going to put on my running shoes.
Because once you start, it's so much easier to just continue. But the goal is just to master the art of showing up. You're simply trying to cast a tiny vote for your new identity.
And this approach is also vital for managing emotional cues. When you encounter a stress trigger, your brain wants an immediate, easy response.
Right.
So you can implement a 2-minute replacement routine, such as the 3-1-5 breathing technique from Clear's articles.
Okay, so that's inhaling for 3 seconds, pausing for 1, and exhaling for 5.
Yes. It requires zero equipment, it drastically lowers your heart rate, and it provides immediate physiological relief, making the good response as easy as physically possible.
Okay, so building good habits requires making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. But what do we do about the bad habits that are deeply entrenched?
The framework offers a direct solution for that too. Inversion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You just flip the script.
You simply invert the 4 laws. To break a bad habit, you make the cue invisible, you make the craving unattractive, you make the response difficult, and you make the reward unsatisfying.
The power of conditioning here is profound. Our sources look at the mechanics of a childhood habit, like a baby thumb sucking.
Right.
It often starts because it provides a calming sensory effect during a stressful moment. The child feels anxiety, sucks their thumb, and gets the reward of immediate comfort.
And if that loop isn't managed, that temporary stress relief mechanism can solidify into a lifelong bad habit.
Because the brain has been deeply conditioned to associate the physical action with safety.
Yes. And the key to dismantling deep conditioning like that, or any adult bad habit, is not sheer force of will.
No.
Disciplined people do not actually possess a magical, bottomless reserve of willpower. They are simply better at structuring their lives in a way that rarely requires heroic willpower.
They design their environments so they spend significantly less time in tempting situations.
Exactly. If you want to stop playing video games, you don't leave the console plugged into the TV, stare at the controller, and try to fight the urge to pick it up.
Because you'll eventually pick it up.
Right. You unplug the console and put it in a closet in another room after every single use. You increase the physical friction.
You make the response difficult. If it takes 20 seconds of extra effort to fetch the console, plug it in, and boot it up, you give your brain a window to interrupt that automatic craving.
You are engineering your life so your lazy default behavior naturally leads to good choices. You are increasing the activation energy required for bad habits and lowering it for good ones.
Pulling this all together, we started today by asking why it's so incredibly hard to change our lives. And the answer is that we've been fighting the wrong battle entirely.
Completely the wrong battle.
We've been relying on finite willpower and obsessing over massive end goals. The real path to transformation is dropping the obsession with the scoreboard.
Focus instead on 1% systemic improvements.
Recognize that every tiny 2-minute action is a vote for the new identity you are building.
And accept that you must survive the plateau of latent potential. The root system is growing even if you can't see the plant yet.
Change is not a test of your moral character. It is simply a matter of environmental design. Make the good habits obvious and easy, and make the bad habits invisible and difficult.
It fundamentally changes how we view our daily struggles, doesn't it? It's not about being stronger, it's about being smarter with your surroundings.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, we talked about how identity is repeated beingness and how every action is a vote. I want to leave you with a question to consider right now.
A provocative thought to mull over.
Take a look around the environment you are currently in. Based purely on where your phone is placed, what food is readily available, what tabs are open on your browser, and the visual cues immediately surrounding you. What identity is your environment voting for without you even realizing it?
Are your surroundings meticulously designed to vote for the person you want to become, or are they passively voting for the person you are trying to leave behind?
It's time to take back control of the ballot box. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.